Don't be quick to blame circumstances. It's not by chance that everything in your life began to go off track. It didn't happen loudly. There was no explosion, no clear signs, just everything gradually became heavier. You began to lose your peace. Even small things made you exhausted. Relationships became tense and you didn't understand why. And worst of all, you were still praying, but it felt like God was silent. You thought it was a test. You thought it was just a phase. But no, there was a moment, a very small decision, a door you opened without even realizing it. And from that moment, everything began to go wrong. Not because God left you, but because something entered. And if you don't recognize what it is, you will keep praying for peace while you are still holding on to the very source of chaos in your life. And the scariest part is, you even think it's something good. I'm not going to tell you what's easy to hear, because I've been exactly where you are, not hearing about it, but living in it. I used to think everything was just a difficult phase, that everyone goes through times like that God was testing me or teaching me something. But there was a truth it took me a very long time to face. Not every collapse comes from a test. Some collapses begin with a door I opened myself. At first, it was very small, so small that I never thought it could affect my life. It was just a decision, a choice that seemed harmless, something that entered my life, that I even called an opportunity. I didn't pray before accepting it. I didn't ask God either. I just looked with my own eyes and saw that it was good. That was the first mistake. Do you know the feeling when everything starts to change, but you can't point out exactly what changed? There was no major event, no obvious shock, just peace disappeared. I still lived as before. I still worked. I still talked. I still smiled. But inside, something was no longer the same. A heaviness without a name. I began to lose patience with people I once loved deeply. Small things became irritating. Conversations became heavy. There were nights I lay there with no clear reason, but my heart was not at peace. I prayed, but my prayers no longer reached heaven like before. Do you understand that feeling? When you are still talking to God, but deep inside you know a distance has appeared. I tried to ignore it. I told myself, this is just stress, just pressure. I'm just overthinking. But then, things didn't stop. It continued, and it became clearer. Not in a better way, but in a worse way. Things I used to control began to slip out of my hands. My mind became chaotic. I started doubting myself. Negative thoughts appeared more often and clung tighter. They were no longer passing thoughts. They stayed. There were times I realized I was no longer myself, not because I wanted to change, but because something was affecting me from within. I didn't want to believe it. I still thought I was fine. I just needed to pray more. And that is the most dangerous point. When you start praying for peace, but don't realize you are still holding on to what broke it. I remember one moment very clearly. There was no light, no voice from heaven, just an awareness, coming very slowly. I was sitting alone, and for the first time, I stopped blaming circumstances. I began to ask a question I had always avoided before. Exactly when did everything start to change? And the answer made me fall silent. It wasn't a long chain of events, just a point, a very specific moment, something that entered my life that I never examined, never discerned, never asked God about. And right then, I understood something. Not everything in your life goes wrong because you are weak. Sometimes, it's because you allowed something to have the right to stay. I wish I could tell you that. When I realized that, everything changed immediately. But no, the truth is, when you begin to see clearly, it becomes even more frightening than when you didn't know, because you can no longer pretend. I began to look back at everything around me. what I had accepted, what I had brought into my life, what I had kept just because it seemed fine. And for the first time, I no longer looked at them with natural eyes. I began to feel there were things that I once saw as normal, but now made me uneasy. Not fear, but a sense that something wasn't right. And do you know what hurt the most? It wasn't realizing the problem. It was realizing that I was the one who opened the door. I was not attacked. I allowed it. That moment was when I stopped asking, God, why is everything happening to me? And started asking, God, what have I allowed into my life that does not belong to you? And that is where everything began to change. Not in an easy way, not in a gentle way, because when you truly want peace to return, you will have to face the things you once called harmless. You will have to let go of things you once thought were good. You will have to close the doors you were used to opening. If you are still listening to this and you feel something in your heart being stirred, then maybe you are also standing exactly where I once stood. The place where you begin to realize not everything in your life goes wrong on its own, but something has entered and you have never truly asked, where did it come from? And the story you are about to hear is not for you to understand others, but for you to recognize yourself. There was a family, not very different from you. They did not live in sin. They did not chase after the world. They were not distant from God. On the contrary, they were the kind of people everyone would look at and think, this is a family blessed by God. The man of the house was named Noam. He was not remarkable, not wealthy. There was nothing about him that drew attention. But he had one thing that many people do not have. He truly feared God. Every morning, before the sun touched the roof, Noam was already awake, not out of habit, but because he knew, without God, he could not keep what he had. His house was not large, but it had something many other places did not have: peace. You could walk into it and feel it immediately, not with your eyes, but with your soul. The laughter of children echoed every day. The table always had people sitting together. Conversations were effortless. And when night fell, there was no worry, no tension, only stillness. It was a house that was protected. But then everything changed, not through a major event, but through something very small. One morning after the Sabbath, Sarah, Noam's wife, went to the market. There was no special plan, just an ordinary day. But that day, a stranger appeared. No one knew where he came from. No one knew where he had been, but he carried things that no one could take their eyes off. Clothes, smooth fabric, deep colors, embroidery that seemed to catch the light. Unlike anything in the village, people gathered. No one asked, where did they come from? Who has worn them before? There was only one thought: this is a blessing. Sarah thought so too. She looked at those clothes, and in her heart there was a very clear feeling: my family deserves this. There was no warning, no hesitation. She brought them home, and that was the moment everything began to change. At first, no one noticed. The children were excited. They wore the new clothes, ran around the house, laughed loudly. Even Noam, though he felt a slight uneasiness inside, said nothing, because everything still looked fine. But just a few days later, the first thing that happened did not come from outside. It came from inside the house. The oldest son began waking up in the middle of the night, not once, but repeatedly. Sweat soaked his body, eyes filled with panic, dreams he could not explain. Noam prayed. Sarah comforted the child. They thought it was just a phase. But then the youngest child began to change. From a joyful child, he became irritable, quick to anger, easily hurt, reacting to very small things. There was no clear reason. The second child became silent, no longer sat at the table with the family, no longer shared, as if he was withdrawing from his own home. Do you begin to see what is happening? Not a major event, not a shock. But soon the atmosphere changed. The house, once full of peace, became heavy. Conversations became shorter. Eyes avoided each other. And the scariest part was, no one knew why. Noam began to feel it. During prayer, he no longer felt the connection as before. His prayers felt blocked. He did not stop. He prayed more. He fasted. But everything did not improve. The fields began to wither. The livestock weakened. The family's health was no longer stable. And Sarah, the one who brought those clothes home, began to change the most. She no longer smiled as before. She lost sleep. She cried without knowing why. Do you see it? There was nothing that exploded, nothing obvious. Just everything, little by little, went wrong. And that is the most dangerous thing, because when everything collapses slowly, you will not realize it until you are already deep inside it. One day, Noam could not endure it any longer. He left the house to find answers. He prayed, but for the first time, he received nothing. No sign, no guidance, only silence. And if you have ever been in that moment, you will understand. Praying, but not feeling God, is a weight beyond words. Noam returned home with a heavy heart. But that very afternoon, a stranger appeared in the village. No one knew who he was, but when he stood in the square, everything seemed to stop. His voice was not loud, but there was something in it that no one could ignore. He said, "There are things in your houses that you call blessings, but are actually doors." No one spoke, and then he continued, "What you bring in does not only carry form, but also carries what has attached itself to it." Noam's heart began to pound. He remembered the clothes, the changes, the dreams, the arguments, everything connected. And for the first time, he no longer asked why. He knew, but what he was about to do would be the thing that changed everything. And you will also have to face the same choice. Noam did not stand there long. He did not argue, did not ask further, did not need more evidence. Because there are moments when you don't need God to explain more, you just need to obey. He turned and ran home. Not walked fast, ran. The door burst open. Sarah was startled. She had never seen that look in her husband's eyes before. Not anger, but realization. Where are those clothes? No explanation, no going around. In that moment, the atmosphere in the house changed. Sarah did not ask why, because deep inside, she had already felt it. Those things were not normal. She gathered everything, the clothes that just days before she had thought were a gift. Now, her hands trembled. The children stood watching, not understanding what was happening, but they could feel the tension. Noam took everything to the back of the house. He did not hesitate. Start a fire. There was no family meeting, no analysis, no logical reason, only a decision. The fire flared up, a small flame, then growing bigger, and then, one by one, they were thrown in. No holding back, no regret, no, let's wait and see. Only one action: burn. When the fabric began to burn, something strange happened. The smell was not like burning cloth, not a normal smell, but something heavy, as if emotions were being burned with it, as if it was not just material. Noam fell to his knees, not as a ritual, but like a man who had just realized what he had opened the door to. "Lord," his voice broke, "forgive us, for we received without asking, opened the door without discernment." Not a beautiful prayer, but a confession. We called it a blessing when it did not come from you. The fire burned stronger, and that was when the real thing happened. Not when the items were burned, but when the door was closed. Do you understand? The issue was not the items, but access. Those things were just doors. And when the door opens, you cannot control what enters. You don't see it, but you feel it. In the atmosphere, in your thoughts, in your emotions. That is why everything in their house did not collapse immediately, but slowly shifted, because darkness does not need to destroy right away. It only needs to stay long enough. When the last item turned to ash, Noam did not stand up immediately. He stayed there, silent. Not because he was weak, but because he understood this was not the end. This was a beginning again. That day, there was no thunder, no obvious miracle, just a very subtle change. That night, the oldest son slept, no dreams. The next morning, the atmosphere in the house was different. Not perfect, but lighter. A few days later, laughter returned. Little by little, the fields recovered. The livestock grew strong again. Sarah began to smile again. Do you see it? When the door is closed, peace is not created. It simply returns. It was always there. It was just covered. And this is what many people do not understand. They think, God has left me. But the truth is, God did not leave. You allowed something else to enter. Now, pause for a moment. Don't just listen to this story. Look at your life. Have there been times when everything started to go wrong, not because you committed a great sin, but simply because you accepted something you did not truly understand? A relationship, an environment, a habit, something you once thought was harmless. And from that, everything began to shift. Not immediately, but slowly. Peace disappeared first, then clarity, then joy. And you were still praying. But you did not realize you were still holding on to that door. The Bible does not say this vaguely. In Deuteronomy, God does not say, "Be a little careful." He says very clearly, "Do not bring detestable things into your house," not because he is strict, but because he understands what you bring in will carry what is attached to it. And you cannot pray to keep peace while you still allow what breaks it to remain. This is a truth few people talk about. Not everything in your life goes wrong because God is testing you. Sometimes it is because you did not guard. And if you truly want things to change, you will not begin by asking for more. You will begin with a question: what needs to leave? But that is where most people stop, because recognizing the truth is hard. Doing something about it is even harder. And if you are still listening, if you feel something inside you uneasy, then maybe you have already begun to see. But the real question is not, is something wrong? But, do you have the courage to remove it? I will not go around it anymore. You don't need another encouragement. You don't need another video that makes you feel comfortable. You need the truth. Not everything in your life is going wrong because the enemy is stronger than you. It is because you stopped guarding the door. Do you want me to be clearer? There are things in your life you have never truly asked God about. You just saw that it looked good, and you kept it. A relationship that you know is pulling you down, but you keep it because you don't want to be alone. An environment that you know is changing you, but you stay because it brings benefits. A habit that you know is taking you away from God, but you continue because it makes you feel comfortable. You call all of that, "it's fine." But you don't realize those very things you call "it's fine" are breaking you little by little. You were not attacked suddenly. You opened the door, little by little. Not once, but many times. Every time you say, "just this once." Every time you say, "it's not that serious." Every time you say, "God understands." You are doing something very dangerous. You are normalizing what does not belong to Him. And then you begin to lose your peace. You pray, but you do not change anything. You want God to clean up what you are still holding on to. You want light, but you do not want to turn off the darkness. You want peace, but you do not want to close the door. This is what you need to hear, even if you don't like it. God will not enter a place where you are still trying to keep something else, not because He cannot, but because He does not compete. You are the one who decides who is allowed to stay in your life. Think back to Noam. No one came to rescue him, no instant miracle. There was only one thing. He had to stand up and remove what had entered. What are you waiting for? A bigger sign, a clearer feeling, a miracle? You already have it. Your uneasiness is the sign. Your heaviness is the warning. But what are you doing? You are ignoring it. You keep living the same way and hope everything will get better on its own. But it will not get better on its own. If you do not close the door, it will remain open. If you do not remove it, it will continue to affect you. If you do not change, it will continue to spread. Do you want to know why you are exhausted? Not because you are weak, but because you are fighting in an environment where you have allowed the wrong thing to stay. You are praying for peace while you are still feeding chaos. You are trying to keep both, God and what does not belong to Him. And you wonder why you are being pulled in two directions. This is the truth. You cannot keep both. There will come a moment you have to choose, not with words, but with action. You can keep listening, feel moved, pray, and then go back to your old life. Or you stop, face what you have been avoiding, and do what you know you need to do. I don't know what it is in your life, but you do. You have known for a long time. You just have not had the courage to name it. Maybe it is something you are keeping in your house. Maybe it is something you are watching. Maybe it is someone you are with. Maybe it is something you are hiding. But whatever it is not harmless. If it takes away your peace, it does not come from God. Stop trying to manage it. Stop trying to keep it under control. Do what Noam did. Remove it. Not slowly, not with hesitation, not with compromise. I know it is not easy, because there are things you have become attached to. You are used to them. You rely on them. You have built part of your life around them. But hear me clearly. Nothing is worth trading your peace for. Not a relationship, not a benefit, not a feeling. You can keep it and continue losing your peace. Or you let it go and take yourself back. And this is the decisive moment. Not tomorrow, not someday. Right now. Will you continue living the same way? Or will you stand up and close that door? All right? Now pause for a moment. Not to think more, not to analyze. Just take a deep breath. I know what you just heard is not easy. It's not the kind of message that makes you feel light immediately. But if you are still here, if you haven't left, then it means something inside you is beginning to wake up. Not fear, but truth. And I want you to understand something very important. God does not reveal to condemn you. He reveals to set you free. So, do not carry guilt. Carry awareness. Now, if you can, place your hand on your chest. If you are alone, say it out loud. No need for perfect words, just be real. Lord, I do not want to continue living in confusion anymore. I do not want to keep things that do not come from you. Take a deep breath. I admit there are things in my life that I have not asked you about. Do not avoid it. I called it normal, while deep inside, I knew it was not right. That is not weakness. That is honesty. And that is where healing begins. Lord, right now, I choose to close the doors that I opened in ignorance. If you know what it is, say it. Do not keep it in your mind. Name it, because when you name it, it no longer controls you. I renounce it. I do not keep it. I do not compromise. Maybe a part of you is hesitating, a small part saying, is it really necessary to go that far? But remember, peace does not return until the door is truly closed. Lord, forgive me for opening doors without discernment. It does not need to be long, just real. I do not want to just pray without changing. Many people pray, but never act, and then they wonder why nothing changes. But you are different. You are here, you are listening, and right now, you are choosing. Lord, I surrender my life to you. Not a part, all of it. What I have held, what I have hidden, what I have not dared to release, I give it to you. Now, be silent for a few seconds. Do not say anything, just feel. You may not feel anything right away. That's okay. Change does not always begin with emotion. It begins with a decision. And you just made a decision. From this moment, everything can begin to change. Not all at once, but little by little. Peace will return. Clarity will return. You will begin to feel yourself again. But remember one thing. Do not go back and open that door again. The enemy does not need many opportunities, just one opening. Stay watchful, not in fear, but in awareness. Make your space clean, not just by cleaning, but by what you allow to remain, what you listen to, what you watch, the people you keep around you. All of it has influence. And if you are truly serious, right after this video, walk around your space, not with your eyes, but with discernment. If something feels off, do not explain it away. Act. Now, I want you to do one thing. Not for me, for yourself. Write in the comments, I choose to close every door not from God. This is not just a sentence. This is a declaration. When you write it, you are confirming what you just decided. And if this message has touched you, do not keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone you know, who is also feeling what you just felt. You do not know. A small action from you can change someone else's life. And if you want to continue this journey, not just listening, but truly changing, subscribe to the God Heals Prayer channel. Not to increase numbers, but so you do not walk alone. Here, we do not just listen. We face, we let go, and we are healed. You are not alone. You are not abandoned. You are simply being awakened. From today, your home, is not just a place you live. It will become a place where God's presence dwells. Amen.